Look at your life with cold honesty. If tomorrow you lost your income, how long could you stand before you bowed? A month? A week? Or would desperation force you into begging almost immediately? Most men discover that their so-called safety net is nothing but threads. One unexpected bill, one crisis, and the illusion of stability collapses. This is the hidden truth most refuse to face. For when money disappears, survival goes with it. And when survival falls, respect crumbles too. A man without money does not merely lose comfort, he loses his voice. He explains himself, apologizes, waits for permission. His labor may be tireless, his intentions pure. But in poverty, he is still replaceable. Poverty does not simply strip choices, it erases presence. Machiavelli warned that a ruler who is unarmed cannot be secure. In his age, that weapon was the sword. In ours, it is money. Without it, you are unarmed in a world where every man is hunting for advantage. Without it, your dignity is always on lease, your confidence fragile, and your future uncertain. You may believe you are free, but the truth is, you are chained by what you can afford. And these chains are rarely visible until they tighten around your throat. Now, look at the other side of the coin. With wealth, the world bends differently. You do not wait in lines, you are moved ahead of them. You do not beg for permission, you dictate the terms. Even silence becomes a weapon, because when the wealthy man chooses not to speak, others lean in closer, desperate to interpret meaning in the pause. Machiavelli observed that men are quick to forget the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance. What he meant is simple. Money anchors loyalty more deeply than even blood. To lack it is to be ignored. To possess it is to command. And yet, since birth, you have been conditioned to scorn wealth. Parents told you to be grateful with little. Teachers insisted that money is not everything. Politicians preach equality while collecting fortunes behind closed doors. Even influencers glamorize minimalism while pocketing sponsorship checks. Why? Because if you accept the belief that money is evil or unimportant, you remain obedient, safe to govern, easy to control. This is not a conspiracy, it is strategy. Machiavelli explained that the great majority of mankind are satisfied with appearances. Appearances keep you docile. They dress chains as virtues. They call obedience humility. They disguise weakness as morality. But when you look closely, you see the truth. Every powerful institution, the banks, the corporations, the governments, treat money as the real source of survival and command. Banks multiply your savings tenfold for themselves. Corporations turn every transaction into leverage. Governments print debt as if it were coin, while you scramble to stretch your wages. History confirms it. Caesar did not conquer with speeches, but with gold that bought armies. Alexander marched across continents not because of words, but because his treasuries filled his legions' hands. Even prophets and philosophers needed patrons who funded their voices. Power has always bent the knee to money, and it always will. So you must ask yourself, if every ruler, every dynasty, every empire secured survival and influence through wealth, why should you be any different? Poverty is not noble. It is not humility. It is chains disguised as virtue. It is dependence dressed in the mask of morality. Without wealth, you are left to endure commands, never to issue them. With wealth, the same man commands loyalty, shapes outcomes, and bends perception in his favor. But here lies the deeper question. If poverty weakens you and money arms you, then what is wealth really for? Is it only for survival, a shield against hunger and humiliation? Or is it something far greater, an engine of power that multiplies your influence and rewrites how the world receives your very existence? The answer to that question is what separates the men who merely endure life from the men who rule it. Wealth is not merely bread on the table or a roof overhead. It is leverage. Without it, even the most noble principle is reduced to rhetoric. A poor man may be wise, but his wisdom is dismissed until a wealthy man repeats it, at which point it is exalted as genius. A poor man may be virtuous, but his virtue is seen as weakness. A rich man, even if mediocre, is mistaken for profound because men instinctively bow to resources. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge more with the eye than with the hand, for everyone can see, but few can feel." Wealth manipulates this reality. It reshapes appearances, and appearances are what men obey. Consider the pattern repeated across history. Julius Caesar purchased loyalty with coin long before he seized Rome with soldiers. His gold was his first army. Alexander the Great did not move legions across the known world with speeches alone. He carried treasuries, and from those treasuries flowed loyalty, food, armor, and conquest. In Renaissance Florence, princes understood that power was not defended merely by words but by patronage. Great thinkers, painters, and writers all required wealthy protectors. Even prophets who shook kingdoms were carried forward by patrons who financed their survival. In every era, wealth has been the bloodstream of power, pumping strength into every cause, every conquest, every legacy. And the law remains unchanged today. Corporations bend governments not with morality, but with lobbying checks written in quiet rooms. Billionaires shape the future not through raw talent alone, but by purchasing the tools of influence, media, law, regulation, technology. A man may be brilliant, but without capital, his brilliance struggles in obscurity. Meanwhile, mediocrity, backed by money, can flood entire nations with its message. This is why the masses are told to be content, to view ambition with suspicion, to worship the illusion of equality. It pacifies them, lulls them into obedience. Machiavelli knew this when he warned rulers to maintain appearances while wielding power behind the curtain. Teachers who say money isn't everything collect paychecks. Politicians who preach virtue bow to donors. Influencers who glorify simplicity live on sponsorships. They condemn money only to hide their dependence on it. The hypocrisy is not an accident, it is a design. For so long as you believe poverty is noble, you remain harmless. Strip away the illusions and what remains is brutal clarity. Poverty is not humility. It is chains. Wealth is not greed, it is sovereignty. Poverty silences your voice, no matter how truthful. Wealth magnifies your voice, no matter how flawed. Poverty makes you wait. Wealth makes you decide. Poverty forces you to obey. Wealth allows you to command. Machiavelli taught that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. And what generates fear and respect faster than wealth? A wealthy man does not need to shout. His presence bends the air around him. Even silence, when armed with resources, carries weight. Men lean in, afraid to misinterpret. They bow, not to arguments, but to the abundance that shields him. Poverty, by contrast, is ignored. Poverty speaks in whispers, drowned out by the roar of money. But wealth is not static. To acquire it is one battle. To wield it correctly is another. A man with riches who fails to understand its purpose can lose it faster than it was gained. Many inherit fortunes only to squander them. Many rise through audacity only to collapse through indulgence. Machiavelli warned that fortune is a woman who submits to boldness, but abandons those who fail to master her. Wealth is no different. It favors discipline and punishes negligence. And so the real question emerges. Once wealth is seized, how do you sharpen it into a weapon of endurance rather than a prison of indulgence? How does a man ensure that the power money grants does not consume him, but instead becomes the foundation of his sovereignty? Wealth is a double-edged blade. In the hand of a fool, it cuts him down. In the hand of a strategist, it becomes destiny. Machiavelli warned that fortune favors those bold enough to seize her, yet she abandons men who approach timidly. This is why money cannot be pursued as a pastime or half-hearted wish. It must be pursued with clarity, discipline, and resolve. To treat it lightly is to lose it. To pursue it relentlessly is to command it. Look at the pattern in modern times. Elon Musk risked collapse more than once, yet by putting everything he had on the line, he transformed industries that others thought untouchable. Hedge funds risk billions in leverage because they understand something the average saver never does: that money grows fastest when used as a weapon, not hoarded in fear. Meanwhile, most men cling to scraps, convinced that saving a few coins will grant security, not realizing that inflation erodes their labor while the bold expand their reach. Poverty breeds hesitation. Wealth multiplies opportunity. The poor man sees risk as fatal because he has no cushion. For him, one mistake can destroy everything. He is paralyzed, enslaved by the possibility of ruin. But the wealthy man sees risk differently, because wealth allows him to survive loss and play the game again tomorrow. This is why wealth accelerates power. It does not only shield against disaster, it emboldens. Where the poor man trembles, the wealthy man strikes. Wealth also transforms time itself. The poor man sells his hours for survival, chained to wages that vanish by the month. He cannot think beyond today because necessity forces him to trade every sunrise for bread. Machiavelli observed that men are driven more by necessity than by choice, and poverty ensures necessity rules every decision. But wealth breaks that tyranny. A wealthy man controls his hours. He can plan years ahead, positioning himself before others even recognize opportunity. He can study, strategize, and invest in moves invisible to those trapped in the grind. Poverty blinds men to the horizon. Wealth illuminates it. Loyalty, too, is purchased more reliably with money than with words. Soldiers march further for coin than for patriotism. Allies remain longer when profit is shared than when sentiment is offered. Even family grows distant when resources vanish. A man may believe his virtue alone inspires loyalty, but history proves otherwise. From Rome to the Renaissance, from generals to kings, the thread is the same. Without coin, loyalty dissolves into betrayal. Machiavelli captured this truth when he wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous. What keeps them bound is not love or morality, but necessity, and wealth creates necessity in your favor. This is why wealth cannot be pursued timidly. It demands sacrifice now to prevent humiliation later. To toil, to delay indulgence, to accept discipline are small costs compared to the price of dependence. Every man pays a price in life. The poor pay it through humiliation, silence, and chains. The wealthy pay it through labor, vigilance, and sacrifice. The difference is that one price ends in sovereignty, the other in servitude. But here lies the trap. Wealth attracts not only loyalty, but envy. The moment you rise, you summon predators. Friends may disguise resentment. Rivals may plot openly. Even strangers will hunger for what you have built. Wealth is magnetism, and it draws not only respect, but attack. Machiavelli counseled princes to prepare for betrayal, for envy festers more dangerously than hunger. The same applies to fortune. Once seized, it must be defended as ruthlessly as it was acquired. And this raises the greater question: how does one preserve wealth across time, through envy, through rivals, through the weakness of heirs, through the endless pull of indulgence? What transforms fleeting riches into enduring dominion? To seize wealth is victory. To preserve it is conquest. Machiavelli warned that a prince who inherits a state must be more vigilant than the one who conquers it, for inherited power erodes quickly when it is not defended with equal ruthlessness. The same is true of fortune. Wealth attracts envy and schemes. It corrodes in the hands of heirs untrained to bear its weight. It slips away through extravagance if not commanded by discipline. To hold wealth, you must treat it as a fortress, guarded, reinforced, and never left unprotected. History testifies to this truth. The Medici did not dominate Florence by accident. They built a dynasty of bankers who understood that wealth was more than gold in vaults. It was the foundation of art, politics, and war. They financed popes, kings, and artists, buying not only loyalty, but immortality. Their name endures centuries later, not because of speeches, but because of treasuries. By contrast, countless noble families who scorned the discipline of fortune vanished into obscurity, their names erased along with their empty coffers. Wealth is more than survival. It is remembrance. A poor man may labor with dignity, but his death often erases his name within a generation. His children inherit struggle, not freedom. His works are forgotten because no resources preserved them. A wealthy man, even if flawed, secures continuity. His heirs inherit not only his gold, but his influence. His name is etched into buildings, institutions, and legacies. Wealth extends a man's shadow beyond the grave. Machiavelli observed that men judge by results, not intentions. Wealth is the proof that preserves intentions across time. And yet, wealth must not be mistaken for indulgence. Luxury fades, consumed by appetite. Dominion endures, for it bends circumstances without a word. The true gift of money is not pleasure, but command. Poverty forces you to endure paths carved by others. Wealth allows you to carve your own. Poverty silences your voice. Wealth amplifies even your whispers. Poverty makes love fragile and loyalty conditional. Wealth strengthens both, for it provides the foundation upon which they can endure. This is why wealth must be pursued at all costs. Poverty demands a price as well. Humiliation, dependence, and the erosion of dignity. Both poverty and wealth require sacrifice, but only one ends in sovereignty. To suffer discipline now is to escape humiliation later. To endure hardship in pursuit of fortune is to avoid the greater hardship of servitude. Machiavelli wrote that men must choose between being feared or loved. Yet in the end, both are purchased through resources. Without wealth, even love is strained by necessity. With wealth, even fear bends into respect. But fortune, once gained, demands vigilance. A man who relaxes after conquest invites ruin. Wealth must be guarded from envy, managed with discipline, and sharpened into an instrument that outlives its possessor. To preserve it requires training one's heirs, removing weakness, and designing structures that endure beyond one's own life. This is the final law. To acquire money is to begin the campaign. To preserve it is to achieve empire. Poverty corrupts the spirit. It bends the proud into obedience, silences the wise into irrelevance, and erases the noble into nothingness. Wealth, with all its burdens, at least grants choice. The choice of allies, the choice of enemies, the choice of destiny. Better to guard treasure than to beg for crumbs. Better to be envied than forgotten. Better to pay the price of fortune than to endure the humiliation of chains. And so you stand before a decision. To embrace poverty is to embrace dependence, to speak without being heard, to live by the mercy of others. To embrace wealth is to embrace sovereignty, vigilance, and continuity. History records not the hungry man's suffering, but the wealthy man's will carved into stone. Machiavelli taught that appearances rule the world, and wealth is the greatest appearance of all. It sanctifies words, multiplies gestures, and secures remembrance. If you understand this truth, then you already know what must be done. Write it, declare it, claim it now. I choose wealth, not for greed, but for sovereignty, not for indulgence, but for freedom, not for vanity, but for legacy. Poverty is chains. Wealth is command. The world belongs to those willing to pay today's price for tomorrow's dominion.